Yes, people, it's Jacob back at the one at top. And I'm here to do my little skit on what I do on a weekly basis, which is talking all things Spurs, and we're going to talk around the game last weekend, Tottenham in general. We're going to point out some key performances, some key facts about Spurs, and looking forward to our fixture next week. So. First place to start off with is at Old Trafford. I did a little reactionary video prior to this one. As I said in my video, I thought it'd be a 2-2 draw. I wasn't too far off, but I did say that, if there was going to be a team to win, it wouldn't be Tottenham. Tottenham don't do these things. If Tottenham were 10th in the league, top 4, top 6 is written off, we probably would have gone to Old Trafford and won. But because the pressure's on, we don't tend to get the results. Man City, the pressure wasn't really on because we were kind of looking like we were out of the top 4 race. That's why we won that. Again, when we're playing Leeds, because Arsenal in good form, you're looking at it thinking not really. But then when we've got to play a Man United, who at least we go above them and put the pressure on Arsenal, Tottenham won't do it. There's a reason why there's a phrase called Spursy, and no other club has a phrase named after him, because this is what Tottenham do. So, I'm 37 years old. I supported Spurs since I was a youngster, since I was sort of 7, 8 years old, and nothing's really changed. It's what Tottenham do. But if I go back to the game, Ronaldo, exceptional performance. I don't know how many times he's done that, whether it's been in the United shirt, Juventus shirt, Portugal, top player. That's why everybody classes him as their GOAT. He's not human. He scores goals in abundance. He broke the record for the most goals scored as a player. Fantastic, and every team, in the world would want a player of that caliber. The goals that he scored, the first goal, even though it was a screamer, could have been stopped. The press on Fred was pathetic by Bentancur. Eric Dyer gave arguably the best player or the best attacker in the world all the space in the world that he wanted. So whether he wanted to dribble or shoot, he could have done what he wanted. And that's where we conceded our first goal from. Reguilon not pushing up for Ronaldo's second goal allows him to be in a position to get a tap in, allows him to get goal side of Eric Dyer. And the third goal, Romero spent too much time doing his shithousery and concentrating on shouting at Maguire that he forgot that Ronaldo's in the box and left Matt Doherty to deal with him. So even though Ronaldo had a blinder of a game, we didn't look like we were in the position to stop him from scoring any of those goals. Going forwards, we looked good, to be fair. I think a lot of the time we played some good football. There's a lot of chances that we missed. I think because Kuzelewski, probably the man of the match on our side. Son was out of sorts. He didn't even decide to wear the right boots, let alone put in a good performance. I think he's on some bad form, and I think he's letting it get to him emotionally, which is affecting his performance. Højbjerg had a decent game considering some of the games that he's had recently. But besides that, everyone was pretty much poor. Our whole back five didn't really play well. Lloris didn't really have much to do apart from picking the ball out the back of the net. And I think United's plan to get a result from that game worked perfectly. Make sure that we played Tottenham at their own game, because everybody knows if you let Tottenham have all the ball, we're out of ideas. Harry Kane only drops off into the positions and sets goals up because teams are pressing. If Harry Kane drops into them positions and the team are deep, who's he giving it to? And like I alluded to in my video, Matic sitting in front of that hole gives Harry Kane an extra body to have to beat, which proved factual because, again, De Gea didn't really... I can't remember him making any saves. Picked the penny out of the back of the net, and then Harry Maguire scores an own goal, but I don't think we had that cutting edge But, you know, when the pressure's on, Tottenham never have the cutting edge. I've supported this team long enough to realise that. So, yeah, you know, fair play to United. They got the result they needed. Still don't think either club is going to get anywhere near Arsenal. I think Arsenal have to implode. And even if they do implode, I don't think Tottenham or Man United, West Ham are good enough to go and get 4 wins on the spin. So I think it's pretty much wrapped up for Arsenal. They just got to make sure that they win their games. But I think if I was going to put a percentage on the chances of Tottenham getting the top 4, I'd say 10%, and that's only because of what Arsenal are doing. We're relying on loads of results. I know Arsenal have got a difficult fixture in midweek against Liverpool, but the way they're playing, you know, I'd still class Liverpool as favourites in that game, but Arsenal are actually playing some good football and could get a result out of that. So, you know, top 4 is done for me. We've got to probably say, you know, for me, whether we finish top 6, Conference League or 8th, it doesn't really bother me because either cup is just as crap as each other, really. And even though I'm a Spurs fan, there shouldn't be going on too much about cups. We won't win it anyway. So if we're in the Europa League or the Conference Cup, it just becomes more fixtures on us, and you know we probably won't have a squad next year to cope with it. And if we're out of it completely, we probably won't attract the players. So for me, there's always a negative towards it, and it's Tottenham at the end of the day. I don't look at us ever, you know, I'm never thinking we're going to go and win a cup, you know, or something like this. You know, you got teams like United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City. They have the squads, and you know, Chelsea and Man United have had their times where they finished outside of European places, but they've rectified that issue the following season. Whereas Tottenham, whether we finished second or we finished 9th, never rectify anything. So we'll just see how that goes. And then, you know, I'm going to move on to the reason why I don't think Tottenham wins cups, and it's for me the issue, full stop, is it's the board. You know, the board that we're being run by are an embarrassment, and in some respects, there's some people in the fan base that for me are an embarrassment because they back these guys to the hills. You know, they're the sort of fans that when we're saying ENIC out and Levy out, sorry, as soon as we beat Man City, they'll be straight out on social media. Oh, where are the Levy haters now? Daniel Levy's nothing to do with us beating Man City. Daniel Levy's everything to do with our failures. You know, him and his Uncle Joe. And I'm hearing a lot of noises that Spurs fans are saying that if Daniel Levy doesn't get this right, the pressure's on. You're deluded. Have a little think. Like this guy, the only pressure he feels is from his Uncle Joe Lewis, right? And the pressure is to bring the money in. But there's no pressure because he always brings the money in. Like, have you not realised that Daniel Levy, no matter where we finish, we pretty much fail every season, and he gets a pay rise. He's like a member of parliament, fails the country, does everything wrong, but gets a pay rise. But then you think he's doing something wrong. In our eyes, he's doing something wrong. But to, you know, just like Parliament, to Boris and all these guys, fantastic job. Do you know what I mean? He's making so much money that Joe Lewis can go and spend 400 million on a painting. Let that sink in. So if you're a Daniel Levy lover, he spent 400 million on a painting. There's no way he's not spent £400. And if he spent 400 million on Spurs, he's probably received 387 in. So net spend will be about 13 million. So he hasn't really, he might have spent the money, but he's seen it pretty much come back. You know, over the years, we've been deemed to spend a net spend equivalent to Burnley, who are trying to stay in the league. But people are telling me that Tottenham are a big club. Never. You're never a big club. You know, I'd understand if you're going to talk about fan base, it's relatively big. If we're going to be a big club, then you've got Man United, Man City, Liverpool. I don't even think we can call them elite. You've got to think of a different word if Spurs are a big club, because big clubs, you know, not the elite, but big clubs still win trophies. They're still relevant. Tottenham don't do that, you know. And the reason is because our board, for me, they've had a plan, but it's not to do with anything that goes on the grass. It's all to do with what's going on in and around the stadium. So, you know, when we buy a new stadium, everybody's talking about, oh, Tottenham will compete. No, they won't. Daniel Levy will get more money. Do you know what I mean? He'll run it the same way as Mike Ashley did with Newcastle. Just get bums on seats, get the money, and then just, you know, do a few things to cover the cracks. So if you look at Mike Ashley, he would go and buy a Joe Linton for 40 million. He would go and buy an expensive player. He would go and bring in a Rafa Benitez, and that would shut up Newcastle fans for a long time until it got to the point where they started kicking off, and then he'd just do something else to react, and then it would shut them up for a bit. But for me, that's a similar thing with Tottenham. You know, just when the pressure's on, he brings in Conte, right? And everyone thinks, oh, this is Daniel Levy under pressure. No, because he brings in Conte and don't give him any money. And it's the same thing with coaches beyond, but there's people that still think Daniel Levy is bothered about what goes on the grass. Daniel Levy is only concerned if Tottenham were to be, you know, in a relegation scrap, which they're not. No matter what Daniel Levy does, we're comfortable enough to maintain Premier League status. So as long as there's bums in seats and we've got the NFL and all that stuff, he's not bothered. But people seem to think he is. Like, if Conte was to walk tomorrow, Daniel Levy's not bothered because he knows full well, with a majority of our fan base, he could go and bring in a Ten Hag, give him 60 million, and it'll shut us up. Or, you know, somehow he'll bring Pochettino back, and then everybody be like, oh, the Magic's here. But the Magic, as much as he was brilliant under Pochettino, will still be in the same crap. We still won't win anything. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have no confidence in the board because there's no plan for what goes on in the grass. Now, if you look at clubs like, you know, look at a club like Leicester. Leicester would, you know, be looking at the books and making sure that they're making profit, but then they would spend smartly. You know, they would go and get in a Tielemans on loan and then buy him for 40 million, which is, for me, still a coup. They got people like Ricardo Pereira, 10 million, coup. You know, they always bring in players that you think, okay, they're not going to set the world alight, but they make the right moves. They brought in Kante, Mahrez, Ndidi. Now, obviously, I'm sure the board will admit to you that they never thought they were going to win the Premier League, but they were trying to achieve something, as you know, and they did it. And you could see there was a plan because they wanted to maintain Premier League status, you know, get out of that relegation scrap each year, then say to themselves, okay, we're going to be a mid-table team, and then see where it goes. And, you know, they're having an unfortunate season this season, but you can see Leicester make plans. Tottenham don't do that. You know, they don't make, they'll bring a coach in, but not plan for what that coach needs. So, for instance, you bring in Conte and Mourinho and you don't give them any money. But realistically, Mourinho, wherever he's gone, the reason why he's been so successful is because he's been given 200, 300 million to be successful. Now, obviously, people say that's ridiculous, but if it's ridiculous, don't bring him in. You know, and then we bring in Nuno and literally throw him under the bus. You know, we didn't want Nuno. They didn't want Nuno. They just thought, right, we've just got to get someone in. And they were literally playing roulette with managers and brought in Nuno just to shut us up. You know, but then there was Tottenham fans still thinking, oh, you know, Daniel Levy had a plan with Nuno. It's like, what? So we went through 8 managers that don't play Nuno's style, but then we brought Nuno in and then chucked him out after a few months. You know, it's only a Tottenham thing to do to sack a manager that got manager of the month before. So there was no plan. We bring in Conte. Realistically, you know, we brought in Bentancur and Kuzelewski, but I don't think they were top of the list for who we'd want. Now, I always put, you know, when you've got a world-class manager, they'll put some requests in for players and it would be in brackets. So they would want, you know, Conte would want, I'm sure, at the top of his list, there are 2 world-class players, 2 people you think, you know what, he plays with this team, get him in. And if we get them 2 in, no matter who we've got, they make the difference, right? So if I'm going to compare them to what he's had before, he'd be looking for someone that'd be like a Hazard, a game changer, Fabregas, a top-level playmaker, Diego Costa, you know. But now we've got Harry Kane that can do the goals. We've got Son who can do this, you know, bits here and there. But we haven't got a playmaker. So he'd be looking at that, but then we don't bring him in. So he would look for a playmaker and possibly another attacker. And then he'd say, right, I need 2 or 3 7 out of 10s each week. So if I go back to the Chelsea squad he had, you'd have, you know, Marcos Alonso, Azpilicueta, Pedro. These are guys that were 7 out of 10s every week, and that they definitely chipped in towards Chelsea winning the league when he came in. And then you'd have a few players that you could look at to improve. You know, they're not the worst players, but they can fill in and improve. So you had your Victor Moses. I'm trying to think who else you had. You know, Matic was always a seasoned player, but he'd gone off the ball, brings him back in, works well with Fabregas. David Luiz, for instance, we all knew that on the ball he was brilliant. Off the ball, not so much. But then, you know, Conte knew that he could work with these guys, and he put players in there with a mixture of what I've just said and won the league. But if you look at the squad he's got now, and you said to Conte, do you want to keep any of these players? There's about 7 players, I reckon, if he could get rid of them and get the right money for them, he'd get rid of them yesterday. You know, if I look at a list of players that I've got, I can think of about 6, 7, maybe 8 players that are supposed to be our senior players in our team that Conte would get rid of in a heartbeat. You know, you got Winks, you've got Emerson Royal. Like I don't even know who scouted this guy, but he's terrible. I don't know. What's he doing? I don't know. You know what I mean? He comes across like, I don't know, just a bit of a mad guy that doesn't really watch what's going on in the game. You got Matt Doherty. You've got I'm trying to think now. You know, Ollie Skip's been brilliant for me, but at the beginning of the season, I don't think Conte thinks, yeah, brilliant. You know, you've got Davinson Sanchez. Ben Davies, even though he's picked up his form, if he has his own wicked way, I don't think Conte wants to keep him. We've got, you know, Galini, the keeper. I don't think Conte's ever had faith in him, because there's times where Hugo Lloris has been off form and he hasn't been trusted. But he trusted both his keepers when he won the championship with Chelsea. You know, I'm just going through players. You know, Harry Kane is our most important player, but he should be rested from time to time. But he obviously doesn't trust in Dane Scarlett. Lucas Moura's gone off the boil. There's just so many players. And when I talk about these players that I'm talking about now, you know, if you sell them, let's say they all got put on the market for £5 million right now. Does anybody that we're competing with or supposed to be competing with think, oh, there's a bargain? So, you know, does Pep look at Harry Winks for £5 million and go, that's a snip? Nope. Do Arsenal look at that? Forget the rivalry. Do Arsenal look at a Harry Winks, Emerson Royal, Matt Doherty and say, well, we'll take him for £5 million? No. But you already know that Levy, when it gets to the January transfer window, probably not January, summer, sorry, is going to say to Conte, you can have 100 million and you got to get rid of players. Who are you getting rid of? We've got players on loan like Ndombele and Lo Celso. They're just going to come straight back, because I don't see Leon paying the money that Daniel Levy's going to want. He's going to want at least 30, 40 million, which I don't think he's going to pay. The same with Lo Celso. Dele Alli was sold for 10 million with this little, you know, deal in place with appearances. But then ever since everybody's heard about that, Dele Alli ain't been playing. So I don't understand the logic behind that deal, really. But I just don't have any faith that Tottenham are ever going to get where we want them to be as a big club, because for me, they're just a small club pretending to be a big one. And you got ownership, like I say, who rather spend 400 million on a painting in the squad, but then somehow we've got people in our fan base that seem to think we're going to go places. And Daniel Levy's under pressure. He's not under pressure, people. I'm telling you, he's not under pressure. The only thing he's doing is building the stadium, making sure bums and seats, making sure there's NFL games, and then there's Anthony Joshua boxing there. He's just doing all that to make sure that when somebody comes in with a bid, they sell the club for 3 billion or whatever the touted price is, and that, you know, for him it's job done. He'll just get a massive bonus out of that from his uncle, because between the three of them, they've never been bothered about the grass, you know. And I do feel sorry for players at Spurs, because a lot of the players that I've just mentioned, I don't hate them. It's just they're not good enough. But you get fans that generally hate these players. Now, if you're listening and you're a fan that hates players, let me just give you a little bit of logic into it, just for you to think that you should never hate a player. So imagine I'll put the ball in your court. You work in a call centre and you're making phone calls, just day-to-day making phone calls, booking in appointments and all that stuff, right? And you've had enough of the job that you're in, or you feel that maybe I can do a bit better. So you start handing out your CVs for similar roles on Indeed or Reed or whatever platform you use. Now imagine a recruiter comes across your CV and says to you, I generally believe that you could be a call centre manager. So straight away you're thinking, no, this person's waffling, but then they give you a call, they say, yeah, we believe you can do this. You haven't got much experience in that, but we generally believe we can do it. Can we pass your CV on to the company? And you say yes, but you still have doubts because there's 10 bullet points on the job description. You only meet 4 of the criteria. The rest of them, you need a bit of extra training and stuff, but you see how it goes. You get a phone call immediately saying that the company want you to go in for an interview. You go for an interview, 2 weeks later, congratulations, you've got the job. Now you're going to, all of a sudden you find out this job, instead of you being paid your 20 grand a year at a call centre, you're getting paid 50 grand a year to be a manager. Now you deep down, it's going to take me a little while to get up there, but it's 50 grand at the end of the day. I might as well give it a go. But your first instinct was you're not a manager because you would have been applying for management roles. So this is what I say about players. If you're someone like Emerson Royal, for instance, I don't ever think he's ever going to be good enough to be, at a top level Premier League club. But imagine if you're Emerson Royal and you've just gone on loan to Betis, you're twiddling your thumbs and you get a phone call from your agent saying, Tottenham are interested and they want you to be their right wing back. Now, you know that you're just a fullback, but you're thinking, don't really know about that. But then you get a chat, they double your wages, you're going to work under a coach that you feel you're comfortable in. In the back of your mind, you're leaving Spain thinking, I might not be good enough to do this, but if they're doubling my wages, I might as well go and give it a go. Then you go and give it a go and you don't do well. But that's not your fault, because realistically, it comes down to Tottenham and the recruitment. Like for me, I don't know what the recruitment saw in Emerson Royal. They must have seen him have a blinder against a low-level team in Spain once and thought, brilliant, because that's how it feels our recruitment works. Like there's a lot of players that have probably had 1 or 2 good games, but I think that's how many games the recruitment team actually watch these players and decide, yep, we're going to go and buy him. And because our owners are not, the recruitment is based off money. It's not based off, is this player going to change us? It's going to be like, right, he might change us, but are we going to make profit? Yes, all right, then cool. That's the reason why we don't get these players like Luis Diaz. People think that we missed out on him. He was never going to Tottenham. Everybody knew that this guy was going to Liverpool, but Daniel Levy, this is what I mean about paving the cracks, yeah? He'll put a bid in for a player that's already going to Liverpool and just be like, well, at least I tried. He's done it. He's made a career out of it. I remember those times where Aguero's Atletico, we made a bid. I tried. Dybala, I tried. Eden Hazard, I tried. Like, how many players are you going to, if you're a Levy backer, how many of these players are you going to see, I tried, before you realise he doesn't do it? He bid £70 million for Dybala. Dybala's waving the way to the Juventus players, but then he doesn't want to pay the image rights. Surely it'd be like, I'll pay the image rights, I don't want to pay the 70 million. So what I'm saying is that that's what Daniel Levy does. He'll do that, get everybody excited. If we don't get Dybala, we bring in Lo Celso or someone like that, and Tottenham will be like, I watched him on YouTube and this. For me, this guy will never pull a wool over my eyes, and I've noticed it for ages. That's why, for me, when I support Tottenham, I love the club, but I hate Daniel Levy. So I know my penny don't go too far to it, but I don't buy the merchandise. I'll go to a game once in a blue moon, but in my mind, it's like I'm giving him money, and he's not going to do what I want. Or at least try and do what I want. I'm not saying I'm like a spoilt brat, but as far as I'm concerned, he's mugging us all off, and he needs to just disappear as soon as possible, if you ask me. And I feel that if you have an owner that actually wants to do stuff on the pitch as well as make money, because you can do both. If someone came in and bought the club and kept Daniel Levy as, the commercial side of Spurs, we would flourish. We'd have hotels and all sorts of stuff going on around Tottenham. Tottenham would become, a really good-looking town with loads of opportunity if you just left Daniel Levy in the commercial side, and then you gave us an Abramovich-type owner that actually wanted to, see the team win. you know, create a dynasty. Whereas the only thing we've done is create a dynasty of failure. You know what I mean? When I've got friends, you know, that I've grown up with, I've got friends I play football with, they all support United, Arsenal, Chelsea, you know, all these clubs, and they'll be talking about their greatest victories. So Liverpool will be talking about Champions League, Man United, Ferguson. Oh, just Jake, what's your favourite? Oh, when Lucas Moura scored a hat-trick at Ajax. That's it. Do you know what I mean? That was a greater moment for me. I went more madder than that than Jonathan Woodgate. That's my career as a Spurs fan summed up. It's it's funny. I can take it on the chin. You know, it's one of those that there are clubs out there in England that are a lot worse off than Tottenham, but far less ridiculed, because at least you'll get Man City, Man United, Liverpool understand that they are going to go and win stuff. You'll get your Burnleys, your, you know, Fulhams, West Broms. They'll know they're going to be up and down. You'll get a Wolves, a Villa understands, you know, we're called for a top half finish. Tottenham they lack direction, and even the fans don't know what to expect, because Tottenham fans in their head think we should be a top four club, but for me, we're not top four club in the country. So why are we going to do that? We're only doing things like that by chance. And, you know, everyone calls Arsenal the banter club, but in recent years they're still winning stuff. We are the absolute banter club, and it's because we're run by Mr. Banter himself, Daniel Levy. So it's just one of those. I could go on about Tottenham for ages, but I want to keep these videos nice and concise and put as much information in as I can. So that's Tottenham in a nutshell. You know, if we move on to what now for Spurs, in a near distance future, we all know what needs to be done, but it won't happen. If we look at, you know, Conte probably needs about 300 million to have a team where he can go home, put his slippers on, and say to his missus, "Yep, we're going to go and challenge for the league." You know, we've got three players. You know, if we're going, for me, forget the league, qualifying for the Champions League, we've only got about two, three players that deserve to be playing in that competition, coming from an English-based side. You know, Harry Kane, of course, you know, he's a world-class striker. Son on his day again deserves that type of football. Kuzelewski, yep, you know, he's had it with Juventus, and I think he deserves to be in a team that's at least playing in the Champions League. And that's it. Romero and Bentancur, arguably, you know, they've shown glimpses of what they can do, but then that's 5 players in your team that deserve Champions League football. We shouldn't be in it. We're a Europa League squad at best. Now, what's the point of getting to the Champions League if you're not going to try and win the thing? That's my motto. What's the point of entering the competition? You know, if you got those TVs on the competition, you don't enter it and think, oh, nice to take part. You want to win the cash prize, don't you? So, as far as I'm concerned, if Tottenham want to get into the Champions League, qualify to try and win it. And Pochettino was the only coach that made us believe that. They didn't win it. You know, even he made these mistakes and Spurs it up in the final. So, going forward, next game, West Ham, Sunday afternoon. I've said it before, West Ham are a very good side, you know. I think they're very unlucky that they couldn't get top 4. I think if David Moyes was backed a little bit in January, you know, just a little bunk up front, I think they'd still be up there, because I honestly thought they were going to do it. But, you know, regardless of where they finished, their campaign's been brilliant. West Ham and Tottenham, I hate this game. I think the only game I hate more is the North London derby. I hate it because with West Ham, there's times where they're in a relegation scrap and they've put in a performance against us, but arguably this season, they're probably better. Over the grand scheme of things, they've probably been better than us. They like to come to, you know, the Lane or the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium recently, and I'm not going to say I feel confident. You know, Antonio's been off form recently, so this will be the game where he scores. Just like Ronaldo was off form. When players are off form and you got Tottenham, put your slippers on. You'll probably score. You know what I mean? Or if you're a defender, you'll have a great game. Maguire last week, barring the own goal, he was nice and comfortable. Why? Because you're playing Tottenham. He'll probably have a stinker next week against, I don't know who they've got, but he'll have a stinker. This is what Tottenham do. Everybody knows it's just Tottenham. Ferguson typified it. It's, come on, boys, it's Tottenham. And it's still the case now. The only time it hasn't been, it's Tottenham, was under Poch, but it kind of still was a bit of that because we never won anything. So I think West Ham will be confident that they can go and get a result. Antonio will be confident he'll get his form back. Yeah, if we're going to look at our team, it just depends. Like, everybody knows now, if you drop deep against Tottenham, you probably beat them. Play them at their own game. That's all you got to do. Do a Tottenham against Tottenham and you'll win. Just be better at it. Because we haven't got an Eriksen anymore. We haven't got a number 10 that can create. We haven't got any creativity in midfield. Doesn't matter who you play, it's pretty crap. So I'm looking into that game. I won't do a prediction now because I need to see what goes through, but that game could be anything. For a neutral, that's a great game. Tottenham West Ham, because West Ham always put it on. I remember the one we were 3-0 up and they brought it back to 3-3. If I was a neutral, that would have been a great game to watch. But again, just like the United game, not confident. This Tottenham team doesn't give me any confidence. You'd like to think that they can win, but they're just not doing it for me. I'll support them till the cows come home, but I don't know. We're a team now. If Kane and Son turn up and do their little duo, we can win the game. If one of those two doesn't turn up, we're screwed, because then they're both looking at each other. If Kane's having a bad game, Son isn't getting set up. If Son's having a bad game, Kane hasn't got anybody else to pass it to apart from Kulusevski, who's doing okay, to be fair. I think he's a good signing, but he's only on loan, so I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back somewhere. But yeah, we turn our attentions to that game. Not feeling confident. We've got a favourable few fixtures coming up. I think we've got West Ham on the weekend. We've got Brighton midweek. So, I skipped a beat, man. I'm just totally remembered that we've got Brighton midweek. I'm not, again, if I'm going to talk about our fixture against Brighton and West Ham, I'm not confident in either of those. And we need to win them both. It's like there's no room for error anymore. We've got to win them both. So Brighton showed against Liverpool that they started off very well. But if they started as well as they did against Liverpool, against us, they'll score without fail. But if they start the way they did, we can manage to break them up. We'll counter them quite confidently. So Brighton will be a tricky game because they play some really good football. I do like the way Graham Potter's playing football, but we've got Brighton and then we've got West Ham. I just don't feel confident, man. I don't feel confident ever. I just don't, because as much as we've got Harry Kane and Son, who for me are world-class players, they could be playing with, no disrespect, they could be playing with Harry Winks and Emerson Royal, who for me, at best, they would be getting moves to a Crystal Palace, and that's no disrespect to Crystal Palace, but they should be at a mid-table club and still fighting for their place. Because I just don't think they're good enough. I don't know what they bring. Harry Winks can keep the ball ticking, sidewards, and you've got mid-table clubs that are okay with having midfielders like that. Just keep it going. Emerson Royal will get you a 6 out of 10 and make a mistake. But again, there's clubs out there that are willing to take that risk on him. For me, maybe I shouldn't be so harsh on the players because I don't know what Tottenham want to do. For me, Daniel Levy needs to come out and say what the ambitions are, because there's half of us thinking, Champions League, this with Conte. And then there's other people saying that we're never going to do that. It's just a mixture. So if Daniel Levy needs to come out and say, we've brought Conte in, we're going to back him up and we want to challenge for the league. Now, if we hear that, then we know that we're a team that are challenging for the league, but we don't hear it. Daniel Levy just does things to make us all think differently. He creates confusion, which creates division, and what he's doing is a divide and conquer tactic. Simple as that. Divide the fan base while you just go and get your money. That's all he's doing, and people can't see it. I'm old enough and wise enough to know. That's why I don't buy the merchandise. I'll go to games, if I get invited and stuff like that. But until we get a new ownership that actually, I'm not saying that we should have a God-given right to be winning cups and getting Champions League football, but at least have a plan in action to make it look like we're trying to do so, which I don't think he does. He's got a plan to, like I say, get the money, and when he sells up, he can live in the Bahamas with Uncle Joe. But that's all from me. We'll see what Tottenham bring for us next week. Look out for my match reactions. I'll probably do one at the weekend, West Ham, possibly one with Brighton, depending on how my week goes. I'll do my predictions. I've got a bit coming up on that. I've got some predictions weren't far off. I got a couple bang on and a couple were just completely way off. But that's the joy of predictions. You can't get them all right, because if I knew them all right, I might as well go and do the lottery numbers the week after. So thanks for listening. Make sure that if you're listening and you haven't done so, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share it out to your friends and all that. I love talking football, talking Tottenham, and I'll have a few more things coming up in the near distant future. I've got some shows that I've been invited to, predominantly Tottenham shows that this platform has allowed me to get onto, so I'm thankful to God for that. But we're just going to keep it moving. This is Jacob on the One Up Top, signing out. And have a blessed Monday.